Bonjour. Welcome to the 20th episode already of So French, a podcast about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French.
Every 2 weeks we select the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories, all brought to you from our studio in the heart of Paris.
This week we follow up, of course, on the surprise election of Donald Trump in the US elections. We talk about the impact on the French presidential elections and also about the French political climate, the elections taking place in only 6 months, and how do Franco-Americans see the rise of their orange leader.
And of course, Descamps brings us a fresh French word of the day.
And first, we start, of course, with the surprise win of Donald Trump. And we invited a special guest this episode. His name is François Picard. His name sounds French. He is actually a born New Yorker, so he's, he went to school in the shadow of the Trump Tower, almost, didn't you?
Not quite. But
No, well, you were
Franco-American.
Franco-American,
Hi,
of course.
Sara. Hi, Stefan.
Hi, François. Well, he's a journalist, half American, half French. And we should also tell you that he is the spiritual father of this podcast, because it was originally his idea, but since he's very lazy, he let Sara and me do the real work. Nevertheless, François, bienvenue. So tell us, how do you feel as a Franco-American?
Well, you should be happy. An orange president. That's Dutch, right?
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think of that. You're right. Yeah. But as you know, I don't really like the orange, House of Orange. So, but how do you feel as a Franco-American this week?
I'm worried because his initial appointments are people who've made racist and Islamophobic comments, and it's making yet more acceptable a kind of speech that we thought was going to one day die out. And that's something we're all going to have to think about. But as a French person going over last week to the U.S. to cover the elections, we already had an insight. Several weeks beforehand, we spoke to pollsters. We said, in France, when the National Front started to rise, the polls got it very wrong because people don't admit to a pollster that they're voting for the far right. And they all told us, yes, but you see in the U.S. it's much more scientific than all that. Then when we got to, I went to do a bit of reporting in Virginia, and we followed the Latino community. And it was just like in France. That's what's so striking. It was just like in Britain before the Brexit vote, and just like in France with previous elections. People who were pro-Hillary were gushing and ready to tell us about it. People who were pro-Trump would say stuff like, well, it's 2 days before the election, I haven't quite made up my mind, both are bad, this kind of thing. Yeah. And you pressed them and you eventually found out, yes, they were voting for Donald Trump. And by the way, this thing that wake up France, this thing that it's only the disaffected from Rust Belt areas, angry white men that are going to vote for Marine Le Pen, it's not true. There's a lot of people who are affluent, there's a lot of well-educated from different walks of life, different ethnicities, different religions, who will go for the far right. Yeah,
so there is, you could say there's the same tendency in the US. You could, make the comparison between France and the US.
Well, what was eerie was that we covered the Brexit vote for France 24 in June, and the whole scenario was exactly the same. The way the newsroom wasn't, our newsroom was better prepared this time, but American newsrooms were not at all prepared for a Trump win. I know that one of the glossy magazines had prepared a full special on Hillary Clinton winning. They hadn't prepared for Donald Trump. People just hadn't. They were in denial. And when you went out in the field, you saw that she wasn't getting the crowds that he was. She had to get Bruce Springsteen and Bon Jovi and Jay-Z. Donald Trump went to a rally. It was Donald Trump the attraction. You didn't need any of that stuff.
Yeah. Now, did you see this coming? We're all journalists around this table. We've been criticized a lot by the media, actually, by ourselves as well, that it's our fault. We didn't see this coming. Did you have an idea of what was coming?
I think people in France could see something like this coming. There's an element of denial if you're against Trump, but of course you could see it coming. And you have to understand the same thing as with Brexit. What is it, first of all? It's a protest vote. And that's what's going to happen next May in this country, a protest vote. let's clean the system, let's get rid of them, let's put someone new in. Yeah, all right, so what if they say outrageous stuff and all that? It's just, let's just throw the bums out, as we say in New York. And this throw the bums out mentality sticks, and especially in the current age where you preach to the converted now more and more. I don't know how many people listening to this podcast politically disagree with the people around this table. I hope there are some, but I fear that there are fewer and fewer, that people just listen to what they want to hear.
Yeah. So when, because I want to talk a little bit about the relationship, how this could possibly affect the relationship between France and the US. We're just first going to listen to what François Hollande said just after the announcement of Trump's victory.
Je le félicite comme il est naturel entre deux chefs d'État démocratiques. J'ai une pensée pour Hillary Clinton, avec laquelle j'ai eu à travailler durant la présidence Obama. Cette élection américaine ouvre une période d'incertitude. Je dois l'aborder avec lucidité et clarté.
François Hollande, the French president, saying, I congratulate Donald Trump to his win, but only because that's what elected presidents do.
And we're going to be vigilant, he said.
We're going to be vigilant. So will this affect, do you think, the relationship between the countries?
Well, this mostly, my reaction watching from Washington, the Hollande's reaction was, this man is one of those people who's completely unprepared for this eventuality. And on top of it, kind of lecturing. It's a bit, isn't it a bit, how do you say it?
Condescending?
Condescending to be telling people we're going to be vigilant. Like, who are you to give lessons to people? You know, the electorate voted. That's democracy, right? If people came out and voted for Donald Trump and people who support Hillary Clinton didn't show up to vote, that's their problem. He's the president. End of story. And I think Americans accept this in a way easier than the French people do.
So you were in the US when this came out. Did the Americans react to this?
No, they weren't paying attention. They were either in grief or in jubilation. They weren't really paying attention to what happens across the line. But to answer your previous question, the transatlantic relationship, well, we won't know until May, will we? Because right now we have a lame duck presidency. It's all going to get a little ugly, right, between now and May with the primaries and then the general election campaign. The answer to that question really lies in the future.
There's an interesting thing to talk about the Franco-American relationship, that is Steve Bannon, the guy who was appointed by Donald Trump as his, what's his role?
Chief strategist.
Chief strategist. Apparently there has been contact between this person, Steve Bannon, who is the former chief editor of the right-wing website Breitbart News.
It's not apparently, it's real. He's met on several occasions with the leader of the Front National, Marine Le Pen, or he met with her when she went to Washington. She was one of the very first to congratulate. This is the interesting bit, is he said, I'm ready to work with the Le Pens, plural. Now, for those who perhaps don't follow the intricacies of French politics, Marine Le Pen is of a more nationalist, mainstream strain of the National Front. Her first cousin, Marion Maréchal Le Pen, who's a 26-year-old member of parliament and is is more like her grandfather, Jean-Marie Le Pen, which is genuinely somebody who hails from the far right. The fact that he is giving a nod to both, and by the way, Marion Maréchal Le Pen answered with a tweet in English to Steve Bannon. That shows that there are links between these people. Those links run further. I know the Le Pens are going to take a page out of the playbook. Heavy emphasis on Facebook to be expected in the run-up to the French presidential election. Perhaps use of those so-called bots, algorithms that push news that's more or less real. In the direction of people to influence or to push them to vote for the far-right candidate.
And the French version of Breitbart News, which is possible before the elections.
Yeah, of course, yeah. They discussed about a French Breitbart, which if you look at it, Breitbart, and I invite people to look at it, is amazingly sophisticated because it's not there are French equivalents that exist already. I won't grace them by naming them, but this isn't completely wacky stuff. It's always conspiracy tinged, but it's always in the realm of the plausible, and it's a good read, and it's well done.
Yeah, isn't it ironic that all these nationalists, they're looking for international collaboration, because there are links, of course, between the French far-right, the Dutch far-right. Nigel Farage attended the meetings of Donald Trump. Geert Wilders, the Dutch leader of the far-right party, Populist Party, attended meetings of Donald Trump. And now an advisor of Donald Trump is going to advise Le Pen here. It's very ironic, actually, for all these people who really...
You touch on a fascinating point that goes well beyond France's borders, and that is that look, our economic well-being or not well-being can be debated for hours. The U.S., you can make the case that here's a country with 4.9% unemployment and better than expected growth, or you can make the case that real wages haven't increased. But the point is more important than what people's real life situation is. And by the way, the most poor of Americans didn't vote for Trump. They voted for Hillary Clinton. It's the middle class, and a broader middle class than we think. People have this perception, and it's the same here in France, this perception that things are going to get worse somehow, that it's all going a bit too fast, this globalization. And that's the message they're conveying. But the people who run these parties, they understand globalization, and they make transnational deals, and they have friends from all the countries. The point is, globalization's here. They understand it, but that's not the rhetoric they're using.
Yeah. Speaking of globalization, your wife is British. It must have been not such a nice year with the Brexit first.
Well, she's devastated. She's from Wales, a country, the country in the UK that gets the most EU subsidies. And I won't speak in her name, but it's just such a shock. People there voted the town in all of the UK, Ebba Vale, which is in Wales, voted the highest percentage voted for Brexit. It's also one of the cities in Wales. I think it gets in all the UK gets the most EU subsidies. They have the most to lose. They have a feeling that they're forgotten. Nobody's listening to them. And
same reason why Trump won.
And it's a way of saying, screw you.
Yeah.
So it's a family show here, so I won't say what they really say. Screw you to sort of both Brussels and London at the same time.
Yeah, so Brexit first in the Picard household, then Trump.
That's right.
Maybe in May, Le Pen. What
the trifecta.
Yeah, the trifecta. What are you going to do next year?
It's, you have to... this is the thing, this is perhaps the difference now between Britain, the U.S., and France, and that is in the United States. One man, Donald Trump, can do a lot of damage if he makes a lot of things. If he makes racism possible, if he takes away regulations, if he does all, if he takes a wrecking ball basically to liberal society. He can do a lot of damage, but there's only so much damage he can do. They call the American exception, the very strong institutions, a strong judiciary, strong legislative body, the U.S. Senate. Even though he's in the minority, Charles Schumer, the senator from New York, my town, he's going to be the new Senate minority leader. He can obfuscate and drag things along in France.
No way.
That doesn't exist.
No.
Now, you can make the point that even if Marine Le Pen wins the presidency, she won't win the National Assembly, and I think that she won't, even if she were to win the presidency. But she'd have a heck of a lot more power, proportionally speaking, of course, than a U.S. president would or a British prime minister.
Well, we have a lot to worry about or to celebrate. All depends on your view.
Well, the election's the election's not done yet. No. And there are many, and it all depends on who's running against her. Right now, she seems very strong. We're coming off of this win by Trump. She seems very strong now. Once we know who the other candidates are, of course, we'll see. But yeah, she's someone to take seriously, that's for sure. Whereas before, all those people saying she could never be president, they'll maybe wake up a bit.
We want to thank you, François Picard, for coming to our show. I'm sure we will invite you again very soon. And for those who want to hear more from François, he is every night at France 24, English-speaking channel.
Thank you. Bien, merci, François. And from American politics, we go to French politics because there's going to happen something very important this weekend. And that's the word of the week, isn't it, Maud Descamps?
Yes, it is. Hi, Stefan.
Hello, Maud. What did you choose for us this week?
Well, the word I choose is the word primaire, which is primary in English. As you said, on Sunday, French people are going to vote for the primary of the Les Républicains. So I don't know if I'd say, the Republicans, the Republican Party. The Socialist Party is going to have a primary, but it's going to be in January. So it's another topic. So I wanted to have a closer look to this word to see its different meanings, and actually it has a lot of meanings. Well, it has the same meaning as in English, une primaire, which is a primary, is a primary election, but it could also be used as elementary school or primary school. Do we say in English? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. François is still here. Primary school, is the école primaire?
Yes.
Okay, so it's same meaning. And there's another meaning I found pretty interesting, is primaire as primitive. Primitive, exactly.
Okay, I didn't know that meaning.
Yeah, someone who's primaire, like I can say this one is really primaire, which means is very primitive, not educated, a bit rude. Yeah. It's not a word you use every day in French, but still it has this very strong meaning. And I have to say I was a bit surprised, because I thought that this meaning would mean a lot in the debates of the, for the Republicans. Yeah. And actually, I was quite surprised by the level of these debates. And I think, I don't know if you agree with that, but the attacks within the different participants, the candidates, weren't so bad and so violent as expected, or I don't know if we can say expected, but as I imagine. And another thing I wanted to say about the primaire in France is that I think it has a completely different level comparing to the American primaries. I guess you watched the debate on Thursday night. I think it was quite interesting, and the level of the debate and of the discussion between the candidates were pretty interesting. So not so primaire as primitive, I think. But
still it has the same meaning. And, well, since if we're looking at the kind of politicians we have nowadays, it's not so, far away from this meaning. Merci, Maud.
Okay, Stefan, we tend to talk a lot about politics in this podcast almost all the time. So we had this idea now that we actually should introduce another segment, which is a more of a cultural segment, to sort of make this podcast a little bit lighter sometimes.
Yes.
And you made a discovery this week, one could say, a little bit after maybe the youth in this country. But tell us about what is your discovery. Yeah,
I discovered a real phenomenon, PNL. That's a French rap duo. Let's have a listen. Fais gaffe, au c'est pas patatata. Je connais le million méchant, toujours pas la 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 la. Entre nous, trop cramé, et même pas, font semblant, c'est chelou. Je suis armé, cœur de pierre, abonné, je suis mouglé. This song, Da, was released only a few months ago and already got 66 million views on YouTube. It's PNL, short for Peace and Love, but their video clips are anything but peace and love. There's a lot of drug traffic, violence in the suburbs, and the two brothers that formed the duo, Tariq and Nabil, they are raised by their Corsican father, a gangster from Les Tarterets, which is a neighborhood in a southern suburb of Paris. They don't want to be interviewed, they rarely give concerts, and yet they are extremely popular in France. Their latest video clip, Onizuka, was released 2 weeks ago and already got over 12 million views on YouTube. The language is very difficult to understand, well, at least for me as a simple immigrant. It's a mix of French, Arabic, Spanish, and the language of the suburbs. I find it fascinating. But what do you think, Sara?
For someone who's very much in love with autotune, I'm sure that they will be delighted about this. I think it's horrible.
Horrible.
And they're even, this whole idea of how they've did this big success. There are actually rumors that they are buying their own records, because when they have a gig, a show somewhere, their tickets are there are no people showing up for their gigs. I'm not signing off on this. I'm just giving you a rumor that is out there.
Well, I still kind of like it. PNL, the French rap brothers.
Well, that is the end of this edition of So French. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please follow us on Twitter. It's @SoFrenchNews. And if you have any questions or suggestions, send us an email. Our address is sofrench@sofrench.news.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can do that in iTunes or in SoundCloud.